the Attorney General for West Virginia. He'll be arguing in front of the Supreme Court on behalf of those of us that believe transgender athletes don't belong in women's sports. Mr. McCuskey, thank you so much for joining us. What made you decide you wanted to get involved in the transgender fight? And thank you so much for getting involved.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for having me, and I've been following you since the PTI days. But
Awesome.
we actually already argued that case. So we did that argument in front of the United States Supreme Court about 3 weeks ago, and we're expecting a decision sometime in June. But to answer your specific question, the reason we got involved is because our state legislature passed a law called the Save Women's Sports Act. And the law is very simple. It just says that sports in West Virginia are delineated by biological sex, not by gender. And that's really the crux of what this issue is that you have one side of people who believe that gender should decide what sport you're playing on. And what we know is your pronouns and your gender have absolutely no bearing on your physical abilities. And the other thing we know is that your sex does. And we're sitting here watching the Olympics, and we just found out a couple of weeks ago that there was a biological male boxing against women in the Summer Olympics, right? We had an actual man punching women in the face in the ring. And the reason this is important is because women's sports is probably the most powerful tool that we've seen over the last 50 or 60 years to start to equal out what we see in the CEO level at big corporations and in the government. The amount of women who've utilized what Title IX was meant to do and have become wildly successful and role models for young women throughout this country is really pretty astronomical. And so this is a fight really for every single woman and every single girl in this country who wants a safe and fair place to play so that they can showcase their talents against people that have the same physical characteristics they do.
JB, I'm 58. I think probably about 10, 15 years older than you. I don't understand how we got here. How did this even become an issue? I'm so old, like, this would have never happened in my childhood. Why now?
Well, we don't need to get into how old everyone is, Jason, but you are a little tiny bit older than I am. And the answer to that question to me is multifaceted, but it really breaks down to, in my mind, in two things. So I played competitive sports. I played sports in college. And we have, as a country, gone away from a meritocracy, right? A system where kids are allowed to lose and kids are allowed to learn about themselves, about life, and about sports through losing. We've turned into an everyone gets a trophy culture. And that's dangerous for a myriad of reasons. And so that's step one. And step two is anybody who, the idea that a child can be transgendered, to me, is offensive to children. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old daughter at my house. My 10-year-old daughter is a very, very competitive athlete. And they don't think about things like that. That has to be introduced into the mind of a child by a parent. And what we have is an enormous amount of parents in my mind who are using their children's sexuality as a way to show a status symbol or to get attention online. And then that sort of turns into this social contagion, right? I think so much of this is driven by places like Netflix, who constantly are shoving this ideology down the ears and eyes of our children. And they're so impressionable that they don't have the ability to intellectually defend themselves when an adult tells them they're transgendered. And it's really sad. It's kind of sick. And this is the Save Women's Sports Act and our defense of it, I think, is an incredible first step in showing what some of the idiocy of this policy has created within our country.
I want to go back to your first point about, how we devalued merit. And in combination with that, we have exaggerated or created value in victimhood. And so it's young children, like you said, you got a 10-year-old daughter. She's I don't know if she's in public school or whether you're homeschooling, but she's in public school. There's value in being a victim. And particularly, and we keep it all the way real on this show, particularly if you're white, because, as a white person, you're allegedly not allowed to be a victim. And so therefore, if you can find some victimhood identity, that protects you from being attacked just as a white person. But that is what really frustrates me about this whole trans movement and the pressure it puts on kids who seek an alternative identity from the one that God gave them so that they can participate in this victimhood Olympics we've set up for young people.
Well, and two things there, Jason. One, the real victim in that situation is the young girl who's having to play sports against a boy, right? So by trying to create victimhood in themselves, what they're really doing is victimizing an entire system of athletics that was designed so that women would have safe and fair places to showcase what are very different talents. I mean, you and I both watch a lot of sports. Women's golf in some ways is better than men's golf. I love watching the women's national team more than I like watching the men's team, quite frankly. One, because they win, but two, they play a brand of soccer that is way more traditional in the ways in which that I understand soccer to be played. Women's tennis, the same thing, right? And when you watch the Olympics, you can see the very differences there. And I think the second thing that's really meaningful there is that people are teaching their children how to be victims, but they're not teaching them how to lose. And those are two very different things. Like just the other day, my daughter tried out for a hyper select team and didn't make it. And so I had to have a really hard conversation with her about, what is it that you need to work on to get on that team next time? What did we learn from the experience of trying out for this team? What do we need to do to get you in a place where you're going to make that team next time? These are lessons you cannot learn if every single time you get a trophy, right? And so there's a difference between losing and victimhood. Victimhood assumes that the system caused you to lose. And when you learn how to lose properly, what you understand is that you caused yourself to lose. And it is within yourself to figure out how to get better and how to get over the hump and whatever the issues that you have that are keeping you from being successful.
JB, how soon do we think the Supreme Court will render a decision in your case? And if you're successful, what will the aftermath be?
Yeah, so we think probably late June, early July for a decision. We're very, very confident in success, but not overly confident, right? But we feel really good that the Supreme Court is going to come down in our way. And just so your listeners and you understand, the case really breaks down to two factors, right? The ACLU challenged our law, saying it was violative of Title IX, which is crazy because Title IX is designed for women's sports, right? And so their argument is by not allowing people who identify as a female to get the same protections as genetic females, that Title IX is being bastardized. We vehemently disagree with that, and we felt very, very good about those arguments to the point where we might even get one of the liberal justices with us on that one. And the second one is the equal protection clause. And so their argument is that transgendered athletes should have special protections under the law, like African Americans do and like women do to a certain degree. And so they're trying to create another category of people who are essentially covered by equal protection. But that argument fails because our law and all of the laws that are similarly situated in the United States don't prevent transgendered boys from playing on the boys' team. There is nothing in our law and nothing in any of the laws that prevents any child who wants to play competitive sports to play those sports. Our law simply says that you have to play the sport. You have to play on the team with those who have the same biological sex as you. And so there is no exclusion. There's only an exclusion based on a category that, quite frankly, in our Constitution doesn't exist.
For a long time, I had a hard time understanding why a boy would want to compete against girls. And then I put a lot of thought into it, and I was like, Jason, do you remember years ago when you figured out, like, man, you were just a football player and you weren't good enough to make the high school basketball team, and so you joined a church league basketball team, and I was
I'm
dominant.
smiling, Jason, because I have the exact same experience as you.
But
It
yeah,
wasn't football, it was soccer. But yeah, I wasn't nearly good enough to make the high school basketball team, but I went and played church league. Yeah,
yeah, and I was dominant in the church league. It was inferior
I was
talent,
not.
and I was dominant, and it was fun, and so I sit there and think in the mind, like, these guys are so weak that they'll just dominate against anybody, and they're getting enjoyment in dominating girls when they're boys, and it's probably no different than I was dominating inferior athletes in a church league, because I'm a Division I football prospect, but I'm dominating, athletes that just aren't very good. But I did enjoy it, and that helped me to understand, like, man, this is just some selfish desire born out of insecurity and failure, rather than accepting, like, hey, I'm not good enough. And there are lessons in learning that, and you move on and you focus on the things that you actually have a strength in, football for me, or track and field. And but anyway, if you have a closing thought, uh, fire it off. I appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for having me. And my only closing thought is this, is that, we live in a world now where kids are just exposed to so much lunacy. And it really is incumbent upon all of us parents and grandparents, if you're raising your kids, to take a really active role in what is happening in your child's life. What are they seeing? Who are they talking to? What are they viewing? Because at the end of the day, the most important factor for a kid having a great life is having an adult who cares about them, and an adult who tells them when they're doing the right thing and tells them when they're doing the wrong thing. But most importantly, is making sure that their children are being exposed to things at the appropriate ages at the appropriate times. We don't need 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds learning about these kinds of decisions and sexuality before their brains are ready for it. And I think all of us parents, especially us God-fearing ones, need to really take a long, hard look at what's going on in society, and deciding how it is that we're going to protect our children.
JB, I almost forgot. You're in Dallas, I believe,
Yeah.
and you're doing an event, I think, with Ali Beth Stuckey tonight. If you could plug that.
Well, yeah. So the Republican attorney generals are here in Dallas, and we're hosting a debate for the four Republican candidates who are running for attorney general in Texas. And what's really exciting about this for us as a national group is that all four of these candidates have rock-ribbed conservative credentials. They're all killer lawyers, and all of them will go on to win the general election here in Texas. And so we get to really start to choose between some elite talent to lead what is probably our most important office in the Republican Attorney Generals. Texas is our second biggest state. And so having a strong Republican here makes the group of Republican Attorney Generals strong. And that's important, Jason, because Congress has almost completely stopped acting. And so when you look back over the last 20 years, all of the large scale changes that you've seen happen at the federal level, whether it be in the energy space, importantly in the women's sports space, you name it, those changes that have been conservative and have made this country stronger have all come out of litigation that started at the Republican attorney generals. We act and we do, Congress talks and doesn't. And so we have to have strong conservative leaders, especially in places like Texas. And I'm super excited to help Ali Beth tonight moderate this debate. And we'll start to choose who's the best one out of a really phenomenal field of candidates.
JB, good luck tonight. Thanks for making the time. We will see you next time.